you shared a piece this morning to take this in a bit of a different direction about something that you clearly think a lot about, which is the future of technology, and it's appropriate as a CTO. And it was about smarter cities, specifically, I think in this case, it was how sensor networks in buildings could use air conditioning ducts as building-wide antennas. What a great story. What sorts of things do you see happening around sensor networks in cities that could change the way that we interact with urban landscapes?
It's actually, the whole smart cities is a very interesting opportunity to me. And, if you kind of step back a little bit and think about what's happening, this is going to be a problem we'll all face for the next 10, 20 years, right? There is rapid urbanization going on around the world. We are expecting, there'll be about 100 new cities with over 1 million people, new cities that will be created over the next 10, 15 years or so. And so the challenge that we all face is how do we enable this urbanization to happen in a different way than we had done in the past? And what role can technology play in building the smartest cities, cities that are more sustainable, that are greener, and that are more efficient in a way? So this is a big opportunity that we see in the technology space. We actually have several trials that we are doing worldwide. With the city in Korea, in Songdo, we are working with Songdo to build a smarter city, right? So that's sort of like what we think of as a greenfield opportunity. As new cities come up, how can we make them more network-enabled, more information-driven societies, right? So it's sort of bringing the communities together to become more connected communities. And going back to the earlier conversation we had, how do you enable government services to be much more optimized? Whether it's DMV or Social Security, there's a lot of these capabilities that we can deploy in a different way, perhaps, right? So there's that opportunity. And underneath that umbrella, you can think of education, healthcare, citizen services, all these being different platforms. So what we are trying to do in the building space is kind of how do you make these buildings themselves more efficient from an energy point of view, right? So if let's leave smart grid aside for a minute. I'll come to that. But this is inside the building. How do you make the buildings more energy efficient? So to kind of do that, you sort of think about today when a developer builds a building, IT is probably the last on their priority list, right? It's more the architectural cost, the bill of materials is so heavily focused around the construction aspects themselves. The technology is not even on the radar screen. So if you kind of flip that around and say, as you construct the building, let's think of technology and what role can technology play in making the building itself more efficient. You can think of various kinds of sensor networks, sensors being deployed in rooms like the one I'm in that control the lighting. As soon as this telepresence is done, I'm going to leave this room. It will turn off all the lights by itself and sort of work. The building itself is smarter so that if I forget to turn the lights, it turns those off, right? So that's where sensor networks, I think, will have a huge role to play in what we call connected real estate, in making the building more efficient. And then if you think about smart grid and what needs to happen there in the smart grid area, that in itself requires a lot of different kinds of sensors to be connected, right? It's now everything from energy generation to distribution to consumption. That whole ecosystem can be made more efficient if you think of it more in the sense of what IP networks have done to information. So if you can apply that analogy to energy, we can make that utility more efficient. So it's sort of like the Internet of Things, and sensor networks is something that's been talked about for a long, long time. And I think 5, 10 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, we used to have all these sort of science fictionist use cases about the refrigerator sending you an alarm when it ran out of milk, and it sounded really cool, but it never really found a commercial application because we could never make the technology be low cost enough for us to kind of have those use cases. So I think sensor networks for a long time was a technology looking for a problem to solve, and I think smart grid and smart buildings and smart cities now are really becoming the driving force for sensor networks to finally find a real commercial application where there's a big need for that. So I found that article very interesting because it now talks about how can you use an existing building. So we talked about the green building in our new building, greenfield building. What about existing buildings? How can you make them more energy efficient? And this article that I was tweeting about this morning referred to how perhaps you could use an air conditioning duct maybe as a as a way to provide that Wi-Fi efficiency and the sensor network efficiency. And I've got a lot of replies back from people pointing out all the problems with that. And clearly there's work to be done there. But I think the idea is, how do you also make existing buildings more sensor network enabled and therefore more efficient in the future?
Well, it sounds like you've got a similar experience that I have, perhaps at a little bit of a larger platform. When you share things out, you get some replies back that then help to correct, filter, otherwise provide more feedback on whatever the given topic might be, which is a very useful thing in real time.
It is actually. I really enjoy that as a platform.
Yeah, well, it's been great to watch you there and also to trade some messages back and forth. I didn't get to criticize your cooking because you didn't post a picture of it, as far as I know, and it's very hard to taste anything over Twitter. But
I know. Somebody said, "Where's the picture?" I said, "Too late. It's already gone."
Very quickly.